in the last few years, the 4K, the UHD format was introduced. We were the first label to release a title on 4K. I mean, I think we beat everybody else to the market by a year or so when we released Hannibal. And since then, we've released a few dozen more releases, and now we're releasing 4 to 6 titles every month on 4K UHD. So
you mentioned that the industry has changed over the years. How else have you seen the physical media space change since you entered the industry?
Well, it's a declining business. We're not going to fool anybody and say that it's not. Every year it gets, we lose customers, replace them with some customers, but not in the same level. So the business is regularly changing. The fan base, the collectors are more demanding. So you would think that would not, that it's kind of an oxymoron, that it wouldn't. Wait a minute, you're being more demanding, you're spending more money, and you're selling less units. Yes, that's true, but there's things that you could. But if you do it right, you can still make profitable releases. You still could release things. And one of the reasons we're good at we are who we are, and we've been voted the best label by the fans for the last 3 years is because we also take chances. We do things that nobody else releases. We put the Anime One collection and some of the stuff you see behind me that we've released. No other label would have done those. And same with a lot of 30s films and a lot of silent films. They're not big profitable releases for us, but we do them because we love cinema, and I think it's almost like a service to the home video physical media industry. So
yeah, definitely, that's something for sure.
And this only works if we also have very successful releases, because the successful releases usually protect the smaller ones. If everything in the package that we acquired did the kind of numbers that the lesser titles did, then we wouldn't be around for too long. So we need tadpole type of releases that carry the weight. So when we acquire a small independent cult movie and put it out on Blu-ray, it's always great to also have a 4K release of Silence of the Lambs coming out. So
that's what I love about Kino Lorber, is that the sheer diversity of titles. There is something for everybody, which I don't think a lot of retailers can say, boutique retailers at least. Are there any titles that are very near and dear to you that you want to just shout out while we're here, talking about the 10-year anniversary? Any
well, I've said this before, the good, bad, and the ugly, the Sergio Leone Clint Eastwood trilogy, the Man with No Name trilogy, that has always been dear to my heart, because those were like some of my favorite movies growing up, and they continue to be some of my favorite films. So whatever you acquire something, in the last couple of years, I would say titles like 3 Days at a Condor and Escape from Alcatraz and To Live and Die in LA and stuff like that. These are films that I grew up watching, and many of those posters were in my apartment framed on the walls. So when I was a kid, so it's kind of great to release titles like that. I mentioned Silence of the Lambs before. That's another one that I'm really a huge fan of. And we also released the sequels, Hannibal and
Red Dragon.
Red Dragon, and Red Dragon is from Universal. So the fact that we release from many different studios is really a blessing in disguise, because we could actually complete a series that the studio themselves probably couldn't complete. If MGM wanted to put out all 3, they would have to do a licensing deal with Universal to put out Red Dragon.
What are some of the biggest surprises you've seen in the last 10 years in terms of titles that did really well, or even trends that you've seen come and go? Like, what are some big surprises that stand out to you?
There are titles that have surprised me on how well they've done. That happens always. Career Opportunities is one of those films that I thought it was going to do well, but it's done incredible numbers to a point where we're going to put it out on 4K. a few years ago when we did a Disney deal, a movie called Space Camp, about a bunch of young kids going to space. And that film, I was never, I saw it in theaters when I was a kid, and Leah Thompson was very nice enough to do an interview for us. We released it with a couple of extras, and it was a huge selling title for us, So, and then there's some titles you're surprised how poorly they do, like a film like Richard Attenborough's Cry Freedom, you know, uh, was Oscar nominated. It has Denzel Washington in it. It has Kevin Kline, beautifully shot, uh, epic, and it did not really sell well. So it's always surprising what does well and what doesn't, and it's how well a film is remembered by the fans. Sometimes that B movie that did not do well is much more remembered today than it did because it's played on TV. It was really popular on home video, and it probably bombed theatrically. I remember years ago when I talked to somebody at Fox and they told me Office Space was their fourth best-selling physical media title.
Wow.
This is Fox, and you know what the first three are. They're going to be Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So after those three, Office Space beats Alien and Aliens and Predator and all these films, Fight Club, all these films that Fox have released. And that movie came out and bombed, but that movie is beloved. But it's like one of them.
That's one of my favorite movies, actually.
Everybody loves that film because it's played. Once it started playing on cable and came out on home video, it's just like everybody wanted to own a copy of it because people love watching it together. It's a great little film. So
that actually is a perfect segue into the next question. Physical media sort of gives a second life to a lot of movies. Why is physical media more important than ever, would you say?
I think it's always been important. I think now with with streaming channels and stuff like that, competing with physical media is important because we get to many of the releases that we've had. The best transfer that's available is available on physical media. The version that's playing on Amazon Plus or Max or whatever is usually an older transfer. Even if the studio owns the transfer, sometimes it's just too much work for them to re-encode it and put it back on these channels and everything. So that's one. And then also, so the actual restoration of these classics, some of these films have never looked this good, and when we release like something like John Frankenheimer's The Train, I've never seen The Train look that good. And I bet you that if you went back to the 1960s and saw it in the theaters, it wouldn't look as good as it does today. So that's one of the main things. But also, I think saving lesser known films, releasing films that the streaming service will not even touch, that we get to release on home video. So there are so many movies. I mean, there's thousands of movies that are out on DVD and Blu-ray that are not available anywhere streaming wise. So that's another great thing about physical media, is because not everything's being released via streaming. And then extras, if you care about those things, the main thing is that we get to interview the talent, the filmmakers, and hearing them talk about the experience of making the film. All that, it's always really interesting. And then we also work with really good historians and critics and and editors and people like that come and do special. They do audio commentaries for us, and sometimes on camera little interviews where they talk about the film and what it meant to them. And interviewing somebody like, we've interviewed Joe Dante a few times for not his films, but other films that he was big fans of. He did Man with X-Ray Eyes. He did an interview for us. John Carpenter did an interview for us for the Quatermass Experiment, because that was one of his favorite films growing up. So, and we reached out to him, and within seconds, he said, "Yeah, I would love to talk about that." They sometimes get even more excited talking about films that they loved growing up than their own films, because that you know, in a strange way, that means more to them. I remember when we were releasing the Clint Eastwood films through Universal, I knew that if I reached out to Mr. Eastwood and said, "Hey," well, of course, we're reaching throughout his agent, but not directly him. We said, "Can you do interviews for us?" I think he probably would have told us no right away. But when we almost got an interview with him until the last second where they backed out. But my approach was, why don't you talk to us about your early days in Universal, and also working with Don Siegel, because the Don Siegel films that Universal released, because we knew that Don Siegel was one of his mentors, and he cared about the I knew that he would be more interested in talking about Charlie Varick than Two Meals from Sister Sarah or something like that, which Siegel directed. But so for that reason, we reached out to him. I was hoping, and they were very interested at a certain point. But then I think he ended up a new project came up for him, and I had to go and start working on that film, so he couldn't do it. It was just bad timing.
And I just want to say, for me, another reason to endorse physical media is that when you own physical media, you really truly own it. So you can own a digital version, that you purchase off of a streaming service, but if they're licensed,
no, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah,
And
then you don't own it, actually.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro, Christopher Nolan, a lot of these great filmmakers have come out and said that, and said, if you owning an actual copy of a film, we have it forever. It's on your shelf. You own it.
Yeah.
Streaming, it's like on a cloud, and it's like you really, technically, you really don't, So, but I understand. Listen, not everybody has the space for physical media. I wish everybody did. I think having a collection like this behind me, it makes me proud, because there's a lot of the stuff that I released that I was very passionate about, and then there's stuff that I released that I wasn't passionate about, but I felt like it deserved to be seen. So, and that's one of the reasons that to be in this business, you cannot just go by your own taste, because if I went by my own taste, the Studio Classics brand would be a lot smaller. So
You're doing it for the people.
So I'm doing it for the people. I know there's a lot of movies that I acquire because I know it has a fan base and people will get excited about it. So,
well, speaking of the people, we just have a few more questions, and then we'll get to the audience questions. I know that y'all have questions for Frank. So yeah, speaking of the 10-year anniversary, are you doing anything special to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Kino Lorber Studio Classics?
No, not really. I'll have a shot of whiskey. How about that on Thursday?
Oh, that's the perfect way to celebrate.
So,
okay, so what do you see for the future of both Kino Lorber home entertainment and physical media in general? What excites you about the next 10 years?
well, I'm hoping that some of the studios that we've had a hard time doing deals with, I'm hoping that they would open their vaults to us, because there's still not hundreds, probably even close to maybe a couple of thousand titles that could be released if they were available to us. Like some really, really great films from different studios that we regularly don't deal with. But we're still working on, we're about to sign a 70 to 80 film deal with Universal. This will be our fifth deal with them. It's mostly films. There's one TV series and a couple of TV movies, but majority of it is just films. So that's one thing that we're working on. And like I said, if we could get, they know who they are. I'm not gonna name them, but if there's two or three studios that if they would open the vaults to us, it would be great, because we would have some incredible releases in the next 4 or 5 years. So. Then
Awesome. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, I guess we could also talk about how are we celebrating the sale. Is the anniversary is that we're having the sale. The sale will start this Thursday. It is going to mention the 10th anniversary, but the summer sale is it's one of our bigger sales. We're gonna have over 750 titles on sale, so
Oh, wow.
it should be I think the fans will be very good. Very happy with the selection. The March sale was the biggest sale we ever had. So I'm hoping this one beats that one. So we'll see.
Nice, that's very exciting. Well, speaking of fans, we can now open up the questions to the audience. So I'm going to be taking some audience questions from the chat in here. We're going to start with question from Griff Redux. Is Kino working on any more TV series at the moment?
Yes, we're like I said, just said in the Universal deal, we have one TV series that we've acquired. We were going to do two. We're not going to say what it was, but the second one we ended up dropping. But we're always looking into doing more TV shows. It's just they're very complicated. The mastering is very expensive, and the releasing of it is very expensive. So we usually target shows that have a shorter running time, called TV shows like Cold Chuck and Night Gallery that are Outer Limits that are 1 season, 2 seasons to 3 seasons. Acquiring a show that has 11 or 12 seasons makes it really difficult to release for us. So yeah, but we are working on it, and it should be announced pretty soon. So
That's a great question, because we talk about film so much that we forget TV sometimes, but Kino Lorber has TV and film, so it's a great reminder of that. Next question is from Kabloom 2010. Frank, how closely do you work with the directors on these releases? Do you have a favorite story about an interaction with the director that you can share?
It all depends. I mean, some directors, like we've dealt with. I was on the phone with William Friedkin when we were doing To Live and Die in L.A. I was on the phone with John Waters just a few weeks ago when we were about to release Crybaby. Yeah, but in many cases, we've reached out to the director. You know, some of them was just to see if they would do audio commentary. Some of them would see if they would oversee their film and the color grading of the new transfer. And in some cases, the director would say yes, I would like to do them. But in many cases, like Ridley Scott was very nice and said no, I would have the DP handle the color grading. So it all depends on. As far as funny stories, there's been a lot of great moments. I don't know if I could remember one that I could share at this point. No, I can't. So, but no, but we've had some. I've had some great conversations with some really, really great filmmakers in the past. So
I'm sure just talking to John Waters alone, there's lots of funny anecdotes just from that alone, because he's a funny guy.
I mean, John Waters he's a sweetheart. He's a great person, and he was very happy with the release, which I was very happy. I'm very proud of the Crybaby special edition that we put out, and I was so happy to see that he and the cinematographer and everybody involved were very happy with the final result. He was also very kind to go on Bill Maher and take a copy of the 4K disc with him and talk about it. So
nice.
That was a special surprise for us. So.
Awesome. I love him. This next question is from, I'm not sure if this is their handle. Chris donated $5. Chris donated $5. I don't know if that's their handle, but thank you if you did. Hi, Frank. Loved your Serial at Midnight interviews. Can you remark on the current state of the Lost in Translation 4K release?
The Lost in Translation 4K release is waiting Sofia Coppola's involvement and approval. So we need her. We've reached out to her people. We're waiting for her to get back to us. When we announce a title, sometimes we think it's going to happen right away. I know the Lost in Translation was announced about a year ago, so a lot of people are very, but it's not just the only release. There's other ones that we've announced that we have, that we've had a harder time. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Guy Ritchie, we're waiting for him and his people to give us access to the camera negative, and how much more they're going to be involved and everything else. So at this point, we're waiting for Ms. Coppola to get back to us.
Gotcha. Mark Patel is asking, Kino, do you think with some of the studios losing money at the box office, they may be more receptive to newer and better deals? I'm thinking especially of Disney / Buena.
No, I don't think so, because the deals that we make with them are not the kind of deals that would move the needle when it comes to their huge projects that they're losing money on. Uh, they're losing millions and millions of dollars on Marvel comic films. They're not going to make that kind of money back from an acquisition deal with us or whoever else. I still think that I'm hoping that that those vaults will reopen, and one day we will have a chance to release more titles from those studios. But I don't think one has anything to do with the other, because it's you know those are much bigger losses, and the kind of gains that they would receive from doing studio or doing label deals with us and our competitors would not cover those costs. So,
In your opinion, what do you think would move the needle in terms of making a compelling case to these studios to release more in
uh,
physical?
the right person, sometimes a person walks in at the company and says, "Hey, why are we just not doing anything with these films?" And sometimes getting in touch with the person you're dealing with, sometimes getting in touch with their boss, but that's something, I don't know, that's a very questionable thing to do. So it's a situation that um, it's a little depressing when you know that there's so many good films that are sitting out there that are not going to be released, not being remastered. Uh,
Yeah.
a majority of the films that they care about are the top 100 titles, the really, really big ones. And when you see the fifth or sixth re-release of a film and they still haven't released so and so, it really does depress us a little bit. So
Hopefully that changes.
yeah,
Sean Snipes is asking, any more Bronson on 4K?
I love Bronson. If you've seen how much Bronson I've released, I have a potential deal with MGM coming up probably early next year, and I'm planning to put a couple of Bronson titles out on 4K, and also do new restorations of some others. Many of the Bronson films that I would love to release are not available to us. We are gonna probably do a 4K release of Rider on the Rain. Um, the problem I have right now is the 4K restoration that was done a couple of years ago was done for the French version, and it's not just that it's a longer cut. If it was an easy edit, you could do seamless branching. The US cut, it wasn't just that it was English, it also had alternate takes and alternate shots, and it's a very complicated procedure, but we cannot just release the Charles Bronson movie in French. We have to include the English version. So that's something we're working on right now, is Rider on the Rain. So,
Gotcha. Question from Totoro is watching. Are competing bigger boutique home media distribution companies hostile or friendly towards others like Kino?
um, we're all civilized to each other. We all regularly share extras with each other. So we understand that in this business, we're going to compete for the same packages sometimes, same film sometimes. And somebody's going to be the winner, somebody's going to be the loser. So I don't think we take it as personally as that. I think when it comes to it, a lot of the labels, we're very friendly with them. We're fine. We exchange extras with Arrow. We sometimes we do the same thing with Shout Factory. Um, as far as them, who's bigger, I guess you could say maybe Shout Factory and Criterion are bigger than us. Even the smaller labels, we help them a lot. Um, in the future, if we have in the future episodes, I may invite some people from different labels to come and sit with me, and we talk about the whole. We hear their point of view of what's going on and what they feel about the business. He goes, sometimes I like hearing that too. So
I love
um,
that. Because we
I
all
did two small labels that no longer with us, as Scorpion Releasing and Code Red. They were run by my very good friends who both passed away last year, William Olson and Bill Olson. I'm sorry, Bill Olson and Walter Olson. Uh, and Bill was the head of Code Red, and Walt was head of Scorpion. Those labels, they were very unique and special, and they will be dearly missed, you know. And we actually did distribute a lot of their films. I also let them do, you know, kind of piggyback on some of my studio deals. So Walt's dream was to release some studio titles, and he got to do that because of our partnership.
Very cool. Alec Fredericks asks, do you anticipate an increase of 4K UHD restorations? I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think we're doing more now than we did in the past. We're releasing things that now that, you know, when I started doing in the beginning, I was, you know, if you look at the first bunch of releases, it was The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, it was Mad Max, it was Silence of the Lambs, it was no-brainer releases. Now we're you know, expanding it. We're putting out titles like smaller titles like Narrow Margin out. You know, Narrow Margin, we're putting it out because we had a 4K master available to us. So a lot of times when people say, well, why are you putting this out on 4K and not this, and why you do it really has to do with what's available to us. When we decided to put out the score with, you know, the Robert De Niro Frank Oz movie, Paramount already had restored the film, so it made it a lot easier. If I wanted to go do, let's say, a similar film that MGM has, then and pay for the new transfer, it makes it a lot more of a difficult release. But we are expanding it. We're putting out more action films. We're putting out comedies. I mean, the fact that we're putting out Uncle Buck and Career Opportunities and titles like Sneakers and stuff like that. These are titles I would have not done 3-4 years ago. Now I'm taking chances on them. And the new Universal deal, we have a bunch of those also. So
Awesome. The Wonder This World 97 is asking, when it comes to commentary tracks, how do you find / decide the experts to record them? Do you give them any parameters? Have you ever asked someone to re-record one?
I don't want to say who, but yeah, there's been a few times where we've asked somebody to re-record something, either because they made an error or they said something that was a little insensitive or whatever. We've asked them to, can you redo this part? How we find them, they usually, most of the time they've approached us, and then if it's somebody that we've never worked with before and I hear their commentary on another release and I'm like, oh, this person's very interesting, so we reach out to them. The top 5-6 commentators, they're going to have a lot more job offers, so they're going to be a lot more selective when it comes to picking up you know, titles to do. I will miss my very good friend Lee Gambin, who passed away about a few weeks ago. He was incredible because he used to do these off-script commentaries, enthusiastic, even films that he wasn't big fans of. He would start watching and get excited about it, and you always heard how excited he was just doing that. And he would bring his friends over and co-commentators. He will be dearly missed because he was the guy that I would say, hey, I can't find somebody to do the commentary for this. Okay, you want to do it? He would say, yeah, Frank, I'll take it. I'll do it. So, and he, you know, I've heard through friends that he has said a lot of good things about me, behind my back, and that how much the fact that I gave him his first job and he ended up doing over 100 commentaries. So he was, but he did, I would say, dozens and dozens of commentaries for us. And we still have films that he recorded commentaries for that we haven't released yet. So all of those releases will have a little in loving memory of Lee Gambin on there, because it's really sad when that happens, because he was 44 years old, and
Oh, wow.
it's yeah, it was heartbreaking. It really was.
Well, that's great that his legacy lives on, you know, in the commentary.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a question about the commentary. Are you always looking for new people to provide commentary? Do they have to have special credentials, or can they just be a huge film lover film fan.
Well, usually it means that somebody has to take a chance on somebody, right? So the fact that I was the first one to give Lee a job, and then he ended up doing stuff for almost every other label. Um, I'm very happy with that. But so somebody has to. Most of the times, it's better if somebody already has done something and they could send you, tell you, hey, I did a commentary for the release of 88 films or whatever, and then you would actually listen to it and then yeah, I could work with this person. This would be great. But in most cases, yeah, if somebody says, hey, I think I could do this, then you're like, all right, let's give them a chance if you really feel like they could do it. I know that we're looking for more people that could do action films. We're looking for more people that could do horror, just not the same. Because a lot of times working with the same group of people, it becomes kind of repetitive. And I know those people are not going to be happy about getting less jobs, but they also have to understand that we want to have more variety. We don't want to have the same 4 or 5 people doing commentaries for all our releases. It's more interesting when you hear different voices. And in some cases, we've done 2 commentaries for releases when it's a bigger film or whatever, because we felt like, this person's a little bit more campier. This person is more educational. It'd be kind of fun to have 2 different kind of voices. One of my favorite ones was for a movie called Astro Zombies, we had 3 commentaries. We had a serious commentator. We had the director, who was 3 months before he passed away. And we got the Mystery Science Theater guys to do a riff track. So that release had all 3, which was great. It had somebody making fun of the movie, somebody that took it seriously, and the director himself. So
that's awesome. Astro Zombies is also a great Misfit song. So I wonder if there's a connection. Next question is from Donna P. I noticed Kino has its own streaming service now. Is there any chance that some Studio Classic titles will become available there?
Well, that's actually a very good question, because I was going to talk about that myself. When we launched the Kino Film Collection a while ago, it's over 400 titles right now. It's available via Amazon Prime and directly through us. You can have the apps on Roku, Fire, and Apple TV. I have to read those because the only one I know is Roku. So, yeah, in the coming months, I'm going to be curating some special little packages that we're going to put on the channel. And at this point, most of it's going to be titles that I've acquired either independently or through Studio Canal. I'm hoping eventually we could do more with the other studios that I deal with Universal, MGM, Paramount, and so on. The first 6 films we're going to put on in July it's a series called Legendary Films, Legendary Filmmakers. It has Alphaville, Godard, last year Marienbad, Renee, and Diary of a Chambermaid, Buñuel, The Nun, Rivette, Pablo Flambeur, Melville, and Port of Shadows, Marcel Carne. So these are all 6 no-brainer classics. They're going to be available on the channel. In July, I think each one is going to be put on, I think, in 2-week increments. So it's a week, yeah. There's going to be 2 films every week, I think. So there's going to be also some other really great titles. As far as I could also there's other stuff that's part of the Studio Canal deal that hopefully we could put on in the future on the channel. But that's so yeah, we're hoping to eventually be able to put a lot of the Studio Classics, especially the new transfers, on the channel, and make it available also via streaming.
Awesome. Great question. Shout out to Kino Film Collection. Next question is from Devin Lucas. Will we get more Italian horror and crime films?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Will we get more Italian horror and crime films?
We're not really known for that. We did the Bava films in the past, and those are now with another label. If the right package becomes available to me, of course, yeah, I would love to do some Italian crime films. I would love to do comedies like Bud Spencer and Terence Hill films. I would love to do the horror ones, you know, of course, Argento and Bava and Fulci and all of them. I'm fans of those films, but many of them are not available to us at this point, and I don't want to be releasing the lesser of those type of films. It's more about, you know, getting the top ones, and a lot of those films are already either available or have come out from other labels like you know, Arrow and Shout and others. So.
We have another question from Totoro is watching. Ever since the Amazon acquisition of MGM, have they become more open to catalog releases? I know Bottoms is getting a release from Kino soon, but I'm just curious.
Well, Bottoms was an MGM release, so we have had discussions with them about that. We hope one day they will be willing to license newer films, some of the Amazon Prime shows maybe and stuff like that. But at this point, we're taking a chance with Bottoms, and hopefully it does really well for us. We're gonna do some nice extras for it. And yeah, we're gonna look into those, releasing more of those. They're not gonna be coming out as Studio Classics because technically it's a brand new film, so it's gonna come out as a Kino Lorber release. Yeah, but we're looking into that also.
Well, it's very exciting. Bottoms was hilarious, and you know, it's a whole new audience. So Gen Z, if you're listening, start collecting. You know, actually, that's a great question for you, Frank. What advice would you give to people who are sort of curious about collecting but don't know where to begin?
Start with your 10 favorite films. Films that you want to, if you only, you know, there's always films that you really, really care about. And it's like they mean more to you than anybody else. And those are the films you should start with, you know, and then take it from there. Favorite directors, favorite actors. If there's an actor you really want to have all their films, you want to go and do that. You know, it's very hard to own every film of an actor like John Wayne because he's made close to 200 movies. But there's some actors that have only made, you know, 15, 20 movies, so you could easily get the complete collection if you care enough. But I would say you start with what you really care about. It's like what your favorite films are, and not worry about what people think of them either. So
yeah, the films that you want to watch on repeat over and over again, and you don't have to worry about it being taken off of streaming because owning physical,
right, because you own it, because
is.
if you're there's a few movies that I, if not every year, at least every 2 years, I end up watching. There's a few
What
films.
are they?
Well, The Shining would be one. I usually watch that around Halloween. It's like one of the films I were. When it's a weird thing, but when it snows, I love watching snow movies. It's kind of, so I love watching like Where Eagles Dare or something like that, and Runaway Train or whatever. But no, a title that I watch every year, like titles that I watch every year, I would say Runaway Train, not Runaway Train. Where Eagles Dare is one that I watch every year or two if I can.
Another great Misfit song.
Yeah. Misfits were big movie fans, I think. So
It's apparent, yeah.
those are all 60s movies. So it was based on Alistair MacLean's book. So we also, you know, there's also The Shining. I watch that every year. I love the Kill Bill movies, so I watch those. And then, you know, when I used to have cable, there was films that I would run into and end up watching it with commercials, which is crazy, just because you want to. There's a scene that's coming up that you need to see. So, and those films would be like Silence of the Lambs or Unforgiven or whatever. Some film like that would show up. You're like, oh, I got to see the scene. And there was one time I remember I'm watching a really bad quality streaming. No, it wasn't streaming. It was telecast of In the Heat of the Night. And I'm like, I own this movie. Why am I doing this? I got up and took the Blu-ray, put it in. All of a sudden, wow, beautiful picture quality. And so yeah. But when I don't have cable anymore. But when I used to have cable, I remember I used to run into certain films and couldn't change the channel. I would watch it because I knew this great scene was about to show up. And I don't care if I've seen it 50 times, I would still watch it for the 51st time. So.
It's comforting. There's some films that just comfort you, even if it's the 57th time, like you said. When I was in high school, I used to watch Reality Bites almost every day for probably like 3 months straight. And then it was Young Adult for some reason with Charlize Theron. So, you know,
yeah, and now sometimes it's like I pop in something that I've seen so much that I don't really have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So I could do the work around the house. I could go and make myself something in the kitchen and not worry about missing it because I've seen it so many times. So a lot of times I do that with TV shows. I just put a TV show on and it goes from episode to episode. And an episode shows up I don't like, I just skip it and go to the next one. So yeah, so it's but collecting is about your favorite films and not about something you can show off to people, because a lot of people love having Fellini and Bergman and all that, but they probably would fall asleep watching those movies. So just
Unless that is your thing, you know.
be honest, dude. Be honest and be proud of the films you have, and and defend them. You know, the films you really love, defend them, and don't care. Don't say it's a guilty pleasure. No, you love that film. You're gonna watch it. You know, it's not a guilty pleasure. It's a film that you love, and the more as the more older I get, the more I realize that films though there are certain films that mean so much to you, that and those are the films you want to forever own, and because you know, it takes you back to a certain time, a certain place. The first time you saw it, it means a lot. It's like you saw it with somebody that you cared about, stuff like that. And so for those reasons, you want to make sure your collection is films that you really cared about. So
That's right. Make some room on your shelf, make some shelf space.
yeah.
2 more questions from the audience, and then we can maybe start wrapping up. But Paladin Productions is asking, with that new Universal deal, any more 1930s, 1940s rarities set to be included in the deal? Keep up the good work.
Yes. There's going to be some 30s and 40s stuff, some pre-code titles. There's going to be a couple of little collections. We're doing like a 30s, I think 30s crime little box set and a 40s comedy little box set. Each one I think has 3 or 4 films. We're doing some double features. Again, this is us taking chances on doing special type of little releases. We're also going to do additional Audie Murphy collections because that's the one actor set that has done pretty well for us. So we're going to do a 4th and a 5th volume. And yeah, and there's going to be another, I think, actor double feature, both pre-code. So yeah, so we're working on some cool stuff. Yeah.
Great. We have time for just a couple more questions from the audience. Paul C. Toomey, author, is asking, has film noir and physical media pretty much run its course, or are there more hidden gems and a market for them?
There are some hidden gems. I think that there's still some stuff that's not released yet, but majority of the films have been released. They just haven't been remastered. So you look at a lot of the great Warner Brothers film noirs. They were released on DVD, but they were never released on Blu-ray. So a lot of those films they would make their Blu-ray home video debuts. And then we have this series, the film noir, the Dark Side of the Cinema collection, which we're going to continue doing. We have 25 volumes. We've announced 22, and we have 3 more coming. But I'm planning to continue that for as long as I can, and even re-releasing titles that were released by other labels, adding a new extra, maybe new transfer and stuff like that. Many of the titles that I picked up from Paramount, I had previously released at the previous label. But they're all new transfers, and the previous label did not have any extras, and we have extras for all of them. And they're going to be available in the box set, so they're going to be a little bit cheaper. What's great about the film noir box sets is that if you don't like box sets and you rather have a standalone release, you could take it out of the box, and they all have their own cases. So you can just put them alphabetically on your shelf.
Very convenient. We have time for 1 or 2 more. TWCC 406 asks, well done, Frank, for providing us with 4 Kubrick movies on 4K. Do you plan to plug the remaining gaps?
I wish. I love when people ask me, why don't you put out The Bullet or Getaway, or why don't you put out Where Eagles Dare, one of your favorite movies, or why don't you put out Eyes Wide Shut? Like, I would love to release the rest of the Kubricks, but they're not available to us. So until they become available to us, yeah. If they became available, of course we would. But the ones we released were the only ones that ever became available to us. So, and we're very proud of it. And I have, and then I'm just gonna announce the title because I feel like the fans have sat through this me talking. We are gonna release John Ford's Donovan's Reef, starring John Wayne and Lee Marvin. It's like all-time classic. At this point, we have the Blu-ray rights. We may put it out on 4K. I'm not 100% sure. If the fans, maybe we could do some kind of a poll. I'm pretty sure everybody's going to say put it out on 4K, but most likely we're going to probably go back to Paramount and add the 4K rights. But at this point, we only have the Blu-ray rights. But we are planning a new remastering and release of first time on Blu-ray of Donovan's Reef. So.
Very exciting. Any other announcements or anything else you'd like to share?
No, I mean, we just we're regularly working on deals. We have a lot of renewals coming out, so time flies. Our first Universal deal was 7 years ago, and next year, so some of those titles have to be renewed. So that means there's going to be another big Universal deal is going to happen next year with some renewals. We're about to sign one this year. We're working on a couple other studio deals, and as far as announcements, yeah, we have some cool little titles coming out through the Studio Canal package. Rambling Rose, plenty. Those will be released. Cross Creek. So there, I announced 4 titles right there. That's coming up in the future. So
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Frank. And thank you everybody out there watching. Thank you for joining us. We really hope to make this a monthly series, and we hope to have some surprise guests join us in the future. So please be on the lookout for episode 2. And don't forget to check out the sale and all of Kino Lorber Studio Classics offerings at kinolorber.com or klstudioclassics.com. Those links are both in the description below. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already, and be sure to follow us on social. And happy 10 years of Kino Lorber Studio Classics. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
yeah, thank you everybody. That was fun. Thank you, and thank you, Ashley.
No problem. Bye, guys.